Hello, I'm Heather at Umi Nami Farm. It's February 24th, 2023. This is our first video of the new year. We took a bit of a break over the winter there. Today, welcome back. We're glad to be doing this again. Today it is, as you can see, a very sunny day. It is also a very cold day. My fingers are freezing. The sun is warm, but the wind is very, very chill. It's still sub-zero right now, even though it's, around 11 o'clock in the morning. And so this has been something we've been dealing with this winter, is this kind of overall relatively mild and dry, but having these periods of very cold weather. And we're in one of them right now. What I want to share with you today is not so much about the cold weather, however, is more about two things. One is daikon. This is an epic year for daikon for us. We normally do not have this much daikon at this time of year. I'll talk about why in a minute. The other thing I'll talk to you about is greens. Now is going into March. March is the season of greens. So we're going to look at how we've been sowing and transplanting greens. We'll look at some of the kinds of greens we have available right now. And going back to the daikon topic, I'll also show you how we're storing daikon to protect it from the frost in these cold periods. So let's start while we're here. Let's say a little bit about daikon. Our latest planted field of daikon is right here behind me. This was planted in middle of August in 2022. This field is about 80, 90 meters long, something like that. And we had 2 long rows of daikon in there. We would normally not have had this much daikon at this time of year. Normally by this time, 2 things would have happened. Normally we would have sold most of it, and whatever was left would have frozen. Now, some of our sales plans fell through back in the fall, and so we weren't able to sell as much as we thought. We thought that meant that we were going to lose a lot of it because we only have so much storage capacity. But the thing is, back in December, when we had that really cold period in kind of like the 2nd, 3rd week of the month, normally those temperatures would have destroyed the daikon, but we covered it with a floating row cover, as you can see. And then on top of that, we got a foot of this really beautiful, beautiful powdery snow that just insulated everything. So it didn't matter if it went down to -10. The daikon was mostly fine underneath. I wanted to lift this up and show you underneath. It's a little hard to do with the snow and ice on here. So I'll try, but we'll see if that works or not. Okay. It's frozen. Maybe you can kind of see a little bit. These guys here look pretty bad because they are actually frozen right now. Like, it still freezes under the rime, even though it's a bit of protection there. So you can kind of see how we've still got some green leaves. Like, this one still has some green leaves on here. But this one is pretty, like the top is pretty much died. And so I expect that, yeah, you can kind of see how this has all gone brown here. So the tops of the daikon are often damaged. And so we'll cut them and just sell the bottom part usually. Yeah, but the fact that they've survived at all is really phenomenal. It is very unusual for us to have this much daikon at this time of year. And so please enjoy daikon while we have the opportunity. We've got it in the box program. We've got it at Fujiya. Lifestyle Market has been taking some as well. And so, yeah, now is a good chance. However, what I will say is that there's 2 reasons why you should not try to store the daikon as long as you normally might. Like, normally daikon can last a very long time in the fridge. Right now, the daikon is either daikon that we've kept in storage, in which case, it's already been stored for a while. Or if it's coming straight from the field, these guys are actually getting ready to flower soon. And that means that they're not that interested in keeping nutrients in their roots. They're wanting to put all that energy up into making flowers. And that means that they're not going to store as long. So if you get daikon, yeah, it'll stay in the fridge for a few weeks, but don't leave it too long though, because now is the time of year when the daikon you're getting is better to be eaten sooner rather than later. Okay, I think that's about it for daikon right now. I'll say a bit more about daikon later when we visit the storage area, but in the meantime, let's go take a look at some greens. Right, here we are in the seedling greenhouse. It is nice and warm in here right now. I just wanted to show you some of the greens we have on the seed trays. Normally in the past, we used to start direct sowing greens, like straight on the soil, putting the seeds straight in the ground as of the end of January. But we really found that germination typically wasn't that great. They'd grow really slowly. And while they were growing slowly, slugs would eat them, weeds would grow up around them. It was a lot more challenging. What we started doing is, rather than direct sowing, transplanting the greens. And so it's the same plants, like this is the same Chingensai or bok choy. This one is komatsuna. It's the same komatsuna we would sow on the ground, same mizuna we would sow on the ground, but by growing them in the trays, we can keep them a lot warmer because they're up off the ground, and that way we get better germination, we get somewhat faster growth, and we can transplant into soil that doesn't require the same level of preparation that we do for greens usually. And so this has been really helping us a lot, even though it's in a way more work to transplant than it is to direct seed. The total picture works out a lot better for us. So let's take a quick look at what we've got here. So some lettuce here. As I said, some chingensai or bok choy. This was sowed January 30th. And so these are kind of like, in this time of year, like in about 1 month, they're ready to transplant. These mizuna here, yeah, likewise, January 30th. These komatsuna are a little bit behind for some reason. I don't know why. But this is what we will be transplanting next week. Like, you know, within Monday, Wednesday, somewhere in there kind of a thing. We have our next set here, so we're doing this on a weekly basis. So here we have the ones that were sowed February 2nd, and now here we have February 9th, each in turn. So this is how we are making the most of planting during this season when the soil is quite cold and things tend to grow fairly slowly. So here we are in our South 3 greenhouse. What I wanted to show you here was 2 sets of komatsuna, which is one of our key greens. These ones here were planted late October 2022, and they have overwintered nicely. We've had to cover them several times when we've had cold weather, but they've survived very well. They're nice and lush, but what you will notice if you look, I don't know if you can see, but if you look really closely here, they're actually starting to kind of elongate here. You can see the distance between the leaves. There's like the stem between the leaves is getting longer and longer. That's because they want to go to flower. That's their natural instinct, is that like once they go through a cold winter, they start to feel the warmth, the light starts to grow, they go, hey, it's time to make seeds. That's what they're all about at this point. And so we're going to need to make sure to harvest these before that happens, basically. But they are still in really great condition and lovely for eating right now. The next set of komatsuna that we have is these little guys right here, a lot smaller. These were actually planted on the seed tray November 10th of last year. And we transplanted them on January 9th. So that's like 2 months between seeding and transplanting, which is quite long. But in the dark time of the year, that's kind of, you know, how it's going to be. So basically, that allowed us, however, to do planting here at a time when we would never direct seed on January 9th. It would simply be too early. We were able to get a real nice jump start to help sort of close the gap between the ending of the overwintered crops and the beginning of the new year crops. Now you will notice there's a bit of an intercrop going on here. There's these red guys, which is acarias. It's a kind of mustard greens. What actually happened here is we planted these ones at the end of October, but for some reason the germination was awful. Like if you looked at the bed, it was like, you know, 3/4 nothing basically. So what we did actually is we went through and transplanted to fill in the extra spaces. And that really is the other advantage of transplanting, is that we can fill in gaps that would otherwise just be, you know, wasted for the purpose of crop production due to poor germination of something we direct sowed. Also, when we're transplanting, we can get a much nicer density than, like, say, if we direct sowed and some didn't germinate, it might be very patchy. With transplanting, we can really fill in the whole bed and make the best use of the space. And so this has been really helping us a lot. Now, in terms of the greens you'll be seeing at this time of year, komatsuna is one. Kakina, which I won't show you right now, but it's those kind of broccolette, sort of kale floret type shoots off of one of the brassica crops that we grow. We also have some bok choy coming here. This is also transplanted January 9th. And these mizunas here are kind of going to flower now, but we do have some other Not so much mizuna now, but we have some other karashinas and mustard greens from some of the overwintered plantings still available. March, as I said, is the season of greens, and so we would love to hear how you like to eat greens. So, with it going down like around -6 last night, even in our storage room, which is not that well insulated, we still need to provide some extra protection. So I actually covered things with this emergency blanket and then some sheets of bubble wrap underneath. This is some of our stored daikon. I just wanted to show you guys a bit about how we store it. It's actually super low tech. What we do is we pull them from the ground, we wash them really nicely, we cut the leaves off, like right at the junction between the leaves and the root, like not dipping down into the root, not dipping up into the leaves, right in between. That severs the growing point so that they can't still keep trying to put energy from the roots into the flower. And then we stand them up in these heavy duty plastic bags and we just leave them like this. We leave the top slightly open so they have some ventilation because we find they actually store longer with a little bit of airflow rather than none. And yeah, we can sometimes store them for even a month or so like that. Now these guys were actually harvested after the new year. This was January 27th. We usually use this strategy for keeping daikon from December into the new year. Like I said though, this year we've had a lot more daikon, and so each time we get another wave of frost, we hustle and get a bunch more in storage just in case they don't do well outside. Now this daikon, you can see here, like it probably looks good on the camera, but actually this is where we've had some problems with frost damage where the daikon don't die but they still have a bit of trouble. This daikon is just going to be for my personal use, so I'll just cut it here with a knife like this. You can kind of see from the top already that it's a little bit brown, and you see this kind of like sort of spongy pith in the middle sort of a thing. So I'm just going to cut. You can see how it looks immediately underneath. Oh, I'm really surprised. That's actually way better than I thought it would be. There's a little bad bit there. Let's try again here. Normally I was expecting this would actually be brown inside. Good grief, look at that. This is a very nice daikon. I'm going to have a lot of very nice daikon to eat for myself now. Yeah, so anyways, sometimes we really luck out, and even though it looks bad on top, it's actually still really great underneath. But let's see if there's another one I can show you. I don't want to cut too many of these, so maybe I'll spare the demonstration on that one for now. But simply to say that it's a little bit iffy as to whether we can get whole daikon roots that are perfectly good. But thank goodness, the way daikon grows partly above the ground, partly under the ground, even when there's really bad frost, there's usually some part that's still very nice to eat, still available for us. I wanted to tell you guys a little bit about our dry beans. I'm here in our storage area right now with some of the dry beans that we still need to finish shelling. Dry beans are a bit of an interesting crop for us. We really love growing them just because it's wonderful to open up a dry pod like this and then crack it open, and inside are these, you know, beautiful red and yellow and white beans that are lovely and delicious. We've been saving our own bean seed for more than a decade, and so these are very near and dear to us. We've worked with them for many, many years. However, dry beans are not really profitable to grow. The growing part's not too hard, but we don't really have equipment for processing them to get the dry beans out of the pods. We don't grow at a big enough scale to make it worth investing in that equipment. And so we're really left with threshing them. When I say threshing, I mean like cracking open the pods, getting the beans out, winnowing, taking out the chaff, getting rid of any bits of leaves and stuff like this that are left. We're really left with doing that all by hand. This year we've been really fortunate to have some great volunteers who have been helping with us with that, but we are still in the process of finishing opening all of these up. And you can see there, nice beautiful kinpoki beans inside. Now, just to say a few words about cooking with the dry beans. The dry beans you get from us, they're not old, they're just last year's product. and they are not over dried. That means that they're actually a lot easier to cook than beans you might get from the supermarket. So what we typically do is just soak the beans in water overnight. Then in the morning or sometime during the day, we would bring it to a boil and then just simmer it for 30 minutes or so even. I mean, you can kind of test them and see when they're the consistency that you like. And that's it. And then they're ready to go for a bean salad, a bean soup, maybe a chili of some kind if you want to do that. Sometimes with these kintoki mami, we might even just, you know, have the beans with like a little bit of sugar, which is a nice kind of side dish. Lots of options. But these beans are a really big helper to us because in the spring when it's a season when most of the fresh produce we have available are greens, the beans give us a little bit of variety that we can enjoy alongside that. So we lucked out there, and the daikon I chose actually didn't have very much frost damage on it. This one I found in the discard pile. You can see how the outside here, the skin started peeling, it went brown. If we look inside, this one is about as bad as it gets. This brown coloring, the watery look all through here. Obviously nobody wants to eat that. But that's the reality of winter farming, is sometimes the frost takes what is available. So yeah. But having showed you guys that, it is time to wrap up now. Today's the last day before we go on to our main season schedule, so I'm going to spend today trying to wrap up some things like organic certification and other office work type things. As of next week, we have our staff coming in for the full schedule, and so things are going to be busy. We're going to get planting, soil prep, all this kind of a thing, and we look forward to telling you more about it in our next video. Thanks so much for joining us today, and we look forward to next time. Bye for now.